I am as equally proud to announce our next speaker. His name is Dr. Ayoub. Dr. Ayoub is a board-certified radiologist and associate professor at Southern Illinois University School of Medicine in Springfield, Illinois. He has devoted a great deal of his professional time regarding vaccine safety. He has lectured at numerous autism conferences and has testified in legislative hearings in several states. And also, very importantly, he is co-author of Influenza Vaccine and Pregnancy, a critical assessment of recommendations of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. And I am very proud that he's here with us today, Dr. Ayoub.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Ayoub. I'm from Springfield, Illinois. That's the warmer part of the state, for those of you who don't know where that is. I've got a written statement. I want to read some of this. I usually don't read my statements, but I'm so cold I want to make sure I say what I intended to say today. But I wanted to say first that my wife and myself are extremely appreciative for the work that you've done. And I know sometimes it feels like it's just not enough and not enough people know. But we don't have children who are affected. But that's the point. I mean, we're here because my wife and I heard the message several years ago that you were delivering, and so I think that there are a lot of people like me that have benefited from all the love that you have, not only for your children you're trying to recover, but for children and families you don't even know, that you just don't want to see other people go through, the kind of turmoil that you've had in your life and the heartbreak and the heartache, and we appreciate that, and we have two beautiful children, and we thank God every day that the work that you've done has benefited us so much, and we're trying to do everything we can to try to give back to this community and really turn around this awful injustice that's happening. I'm not a treating doctor either, so when I figured out what was happening several years ago, I initially thought I could contribute by doing a lot of some legislative work and trying to get some vaccine laws passed and help. So I have some personal insight into the AAP, and since we're here in front of the AAP today, and very unhappy with the work that they've done, I want to share with you some of the some personal stories and some insight I've had into the workings of this organization. I testified several times in Illinois and in Massachusetts also, and I was involved in several other states. So I've really had a chance at times to go head-to-head with some of the representatives. They did one right thing in 1999 when they made this public joint statement with Public Health Service, and they said, we're doing this as a precautionary measure. We're going to take mercury out of the vaccine. So they started out pretty good. But really, since then, they've made a 180-degree turn with really no explanation. First of all, they've endorsed and promoted the expansion of the routine flu vaccination. And many of you may not know this, but this really, 7-8 years ago, we weren't giving kids flu shots routinely, but since 2004, we are. So they've promoted that. They've promoted that to pregnant women. They've promoted that to infancy and early childhood. And they have not stated preference to use thimerosal-free. They haven't pushed the drug companies to take thimerosal out of the flu shots, as they did with hepatitis B and HIV and DTP. They joined public health departments in various states to strongly oppose any legislation that would prohibit the use of thimerosal in vaccines. They've opposed, I know in Illinois, legislation that would even require informed consent. So if the parent would have a chance of knowing that there was thimerosal in vaccine. They failed to notify their own pediatricians that to preferentially order thimerosal-free shots. And I've talked to several of the practices in Springfield, for example, and the doctors don't know. I mean, the doctors really aren't ordering the supply. It's usually a nurse that's stockpiling, and they basically do whatever's convenient, and the drug companies sometimes make it very easy to order this stuff. So they have no idea most of them I've talked to have no idea. They assume that it's never in there, and we're not giving it. And that's completely untrue. Worse, they've consistently misled, and that's a very, I think, generous word, misled legislators, journalists, parents, and professionals by adhering to an outright lie that mercury has been removed from childhood vaccines. And if you actually do the math, children that are adhering to the CDC schedule are going to get well over 50% of the total thimerosal they got throughout the 90s. And that number is going to get worse. They're now doing studies to look at 0 to 6 months of age, and they're doubling shots now. So I think potentially by the time a kid turns 5 or 6, they're going to get more mercury exposure than they ever have. So yet they have the nerve to sit here and say it's been taken out, and basically most of the pediatricians are just believing that lie. It's perplexing that they have really endorsed these the use of thimerosal, which really is, if flu vaccine is such a critical healthcare policy, and really these thimerosal bans are flu vaccine issues. I mean, that's really the last vaccine that has a lot in it. What's really idiotic is that the thimerosal is a lousy preservative. We have studies going back to the 50s that say it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't kill bacteria. And in 2004, Chiron was supplying over half of the U.S. flu supply, shipped some contaminated vaccines before they pulled it, but we had the largest contamination of a pharmaceutical product, largest scale contamination in the United States history. Not because it didn't have a preservative, because it did have a preservative. Thimerosal at the full preservative dose failed miserably. Bacteria grew in these lots, and so why don't public health officials and why haven't the pediatricians circle the wagon and say, look, if the flu vaccine is a critical public health policy, we cannot allow half of the flu vaccine supply to be threatened in the United States. So we have to either use single-dose vials, and all medicines are practically going to single-use vials anyway, except for vaccines, of course, or find another available preservative, something like an antibiotic. So I think that's one of the biggest lies that they adhere to is they're treating thimerosal as an irreplaceable benefit to vaccine sterility, when in fact that's absolute outright lie. And it doesn't surprise anybody, considering policy that the AAP makes. What's the result of their wonderful policy? Well, Save the Children Foundation published a survey, and this is backed up by CIA fact books, which keeps infant mortality statistics. And the Save the Children Foundation did a study and found out that the U.S. ranks 32 out of 33 nations in infant mortality. So is there anybody, you would think that the AAP would be in a shack, instead of a palace behind us with those kind of statistics. I mean, nobody, no doctor, no employee of the AAP should walk around with their chin in the air when our children are the sickest children on the planet, practically. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Another role that the AAP has had in perpetuating the concept that there's no legitimate link between vaccines and autism through their trade magazine, Pediatrics. Now, Pediatrics has published 3 major articles: the Madsen study, which is one of the terrible Danish epidemiological studies; the Verstraeten study, and Verstraeten is of Simpsonwood fame, that he essentially since retracted the conclusions of that study; and an Eric Fambone study, Quebec epidemiology study. Now, these were terrible studies, and the editor-in-chief of Pediatrics, Gerald Lucy, received a number of written criticisms, as every journal has an open-door policy to assess and print criticisms so that the readership, the pediatricians that are getting the journals, can listen to what the critics are of the studies. And Dr. Lucy, you may not know this, has been an absolute roadblock to allow any printed criticism in the journal Pediatrics. And in fact, in the case of my criticism of the Fambone study, he wouldn't even allow me to publish our criticism on their online version of it, their website, which is very easy to get a criticism published. His replies, and I've got a copy of several of these letters that he's, in spite of actually having a copy of the database, and in the case of Eric Fambone study, we proved this study fraudulent. We had vaccine records from parents, and we had the actual database he used.